Bill.
Edgar.
Pizza.
I'm already engaged.
Okay, hear me out. Jalapenos, olives, pineapple. Thoughts?
Not a huge olives guy. They're okay as kind of a thing to snack on. Like if you're having a barbecue and the main stuff isn't ready yet, if there was like a bowl of things.
An antipasti. Antipasti?
That's the word. That's the word. For an Italian barbecue. Yeah, I wouldn't tend to have them on pizza, and I think I prefer the green to the black olives, and there's usually black olives on pizza, right?
It is.
Yeah. That is remarkably close to one of my favoured pizza topping combinations.
Really? What is your favourite pizza topping combination, Bill?
Substitute the olives with pepperoni.
Well, I can't do that because
you can eat meat, yeah.
Animals would have died for that, Bill, and you should feel awful.
I often do. I mean, if that pizza chain started offering meatless pepperoni, I would happily go for it.
So pepperoni, jalapenos, and pineapple.
Jalapenos. There's a little tilde over the end. Come on, Edgar.
That's right, jalapenos.
Jalapenos.
Thanks for correcting my pronunciation there, pal. That's intriguing. I think both of these pizza topping combinations, the jalapenos, olives, pineapples, and then the jalapenos, pepperoni, and pineapples, I think they're cut from the same cloth in that maybe this is what I'm doing with that combination. I wonder, are you doing the same thing, where you get spiciness from the jalapenos, you get saltiness from the olives or the pepperoni, and you get sweetness from the pineapple. So you're hitting all the major taste sensations.
I think that is it. I think that is it. This is sort of there's a triad there that is being satisfied.
Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't expecting you to be as okay with that, because I got this pizza combination from I don't know if you know the H3 podcast.
I am aware of the name.
Yeah, so a thing that they do on the podcast very often is they order food and eat on the podcast, which I find a little bit
gross.
Yeah, I find a little bit gross, and I tend to tune out for those sections. But one of the things that they ordered one time was a pizza, and the host Ethan was like, "You got to try this."
He was eating
jalapenos, olives, and pineapple. It's amazing, and no one believes me. And then I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a blast," and I am in love. I think that is a whopping combination. But so far, everyone I've talked to have most people are okay with the jalapenos. Most people are fine with that. But the minute you mention either black olives or pineapples, people check out, because they seem to be two very, very contentious pizza toppings.
Yeah, it's very divisive.
And I don't understand the pineapple thing. Like, it's weird. It's like, it's a bit of sweetness on the pizza. It's cool. Like, I get it's a fruit, but fruit is allowed to go on a savoury meal. That's all right.
Yeah, like sweet and sour.
Sweet and sour has pineapple in it.
Yeah.
So
cranberry sauce and turkey.
Well, cranberry sauce I'm not a fan of cranberry sauce.
But it is an example of fruit. Or applesauce and pork.
Applesauce and pork.
Yeah.
Or is there another example?
Wensleydale with fruit in it, as the cheese. You can get it with like cranberries or with apricots or whatever.
Yeah, that's nice. It's much better with the apricots than it is with the cranberries. Cranberries are I find them so sour. They're so tart. And then, when they like quote unquote taste good to me, it just means that they're like what you're eating is 90% sugar with a little bit of cranberry. And it's just kind of like, I just feel bad for the imminent diabetes, and I don't enjoy the experience of eating this like cranberry syrup. But yeah, most people not on board with that pizza, and I've been trying to evangelize that pizza to everyone around. Most people don't like it, so I thought I'd bring it up to you and see what you thought. And also, listeners, let me know if you have the opportunity, try this pizza topping out. Even if you're skeptical about some of the ingredients, try it out in combination. I think in combination, it's great.
Okay.
So yeah, try it out and let us know in the comments, because I think our food talk. Did we have a food talk last time? No, we did. What did we do last time, Bill? We talked about, the secret weird things people do, and that was revolved around food. I think a lot of people like that, like silly food talk. So I was like, hey, let's do another silly food talks. There you go, silly food talk number 2, pizza toppings. The one true pizza, jalapenos, black olives, and pineapple. And I'm not hearing otherwise. So first item of follow-up, I need to apologize.
About time.
I was wrong, and I want to apologize to my friends and family because I've made a severe and continuous lapse in judgment. Wait, no, hang on. This is an internet apology. I have to start with. Anyway, sorry. On a serious note,
just to warn you, my audio definitely clipped there.
That's fine. Well, I'm about to apologize for the audio issue, so you could apologize next month for the audio issue. So on a serious note, I need to apologize for the audio quality on my end in the last recording. I completely screwed up. I forgot to plug in, I plugged in my mic but forgot to select it in my recording software. So I was using the built-in microphone on the computer, which isn't very good. But so I made the call that I'd rather get the episode out as opposed to re-recording and delaying everything and moving the video schedule on, etc. I was like, we'll put it out, and unless there's a massive uproar about it, that'll be okay. But I do want to apologize for it. It was completely my fault, and it was just a massive lapse in judgment. I have triple checked that today I am in fact using this microphone. So yeah, apologies for that, folks. Bill will apologize for his obnoxious laugh next month.
I absolutely will not.
Your laugh was the best part. It's just, again, it goes from 0 to 100 in like a millisecond. It's absolutely hilarious.
I have a lot of joy to share.
You do have a lot of joy to share. Okay, so the next item of follow up is actually, Bill, how about you do the next item of follow up? You've written in the show notes Irish accent crime corner. I've been talking for ages, so let's do a bit of Bill talking.
So last episode you talked about, it was Wild Mountain Time, wasn't it?
No, it was Frontier.
No, it wasn't. It was which?
Frontier.
It was Frontier. It was Frontier. Yes.
Feckin' me hard.
And the terrible Irish accents there. And actually a discussion in the Reddit thread from the previous episode reminded me of this. And it shares a certain number of similarities with Frontier. The game Assassin's Creed Rogue.
Okay, I've not played.
Have you played any of the Assassin's Creed games?
I played that one where you were in Venice. Or not Venice, you're in Italy.
Yeah.
Way back in the day.
2, yeah.
Sure.
So Assassin's Creed Rogue is set a little bit earlier, but broadly the same kind of time period as Frontier. It's set in maybe a little bit earlier. It's the late 1700s. Kind of mid to late 1700s, before the American Revolution. And you play an American of Irish descent, but like supposedly with an Irish accent, and he's always referred to as Irish, by the name of Shay Patrick Cormac, because we are well known in Ireland for having 3 first names and no surname. Just they had a dartboard of like typical Irish names and just threw 3 darts and took that and didn't change anything or didn't look into it any further. And it has the worst Irish accent I've seen in a video game in a long time. It came out a good few years ago, but I only played it kind of end of last year, start of this year. And it's set in New England and bits of British North America, later Canada, and the North Atlantic and stuff. So, there's analogues to the setting of Frontier. But the accent is truly, truly awful.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to listen to it here. Give me a second.
Why is the ram always gone? Oh, am I boring you? Barkeep, catch me another rum. Sorry to drop in unannounced. Ease off the wind! Haul it all sail! He's seen us! Give chase! I can see my house from here.
Wow. That makes Michael's accent from Frontier sound like he's a native.
It's bad, isn't it?
Whoa.
Yeah, it's bad.
Do you know what? I have a problem with this. Sorry, I'm about to get a little bit serious here, Bill, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Some of it sounds like he's affecting a sort of a drunk vibe. And like I get, right, that drinking and drinking culture is kind of a big thing in Ireland, but like it frustrates me so much when we're all painted under that umbrella. And like, you know, this is nothing new. Like, you know, Edgar has this fresh take that, like, you know, not every Irish person is the same, obviously, right? But it's so annoying. And like it happens not regularly, but like it happens intermittently throughout my life where I'm reminded that we are viewed as the drunks, and it's just really frustrating. Like, I remember one time I was in Paris, and we're going up to Montmartre, or however you correctly pronounce that in French, and one of the street artists came up looking to try and get us to sit down for the art thing. And, you know, where they usually try and engage you in conversation to try and like lock you in. And he was like, oh, where are you from? Where are you from? We're like, oh, from Ireland. And he's like, Ireland, hey! And like makes the drinking, like, you know, bottoms up sort of symbol. I'm just kind of like, you know, we've a history of great literary powerhouses. I think the dude who invented the submarine was Irish, or maybe a submarine missile, something like that. He was Irish. Like, you know, Ireland is more than just we drink ourselves stupid all the time, and it's so frustrating. So it's really frustrating to hear this video game voice. I don't know if this is intentional, but just affect the sort of like slightly daft drunk Irish man, and you're like, oh, come on, lads. That's my rant.
Yeah. No, that's totally fair. It's very frustrating.
It's really annoying. Yeah, it's yeah. Anyhow, but this is an awful accent.
Yeah, and like there's some other bad voice acting in it as well. There's one of the supporting characters is I don't know if you've ever seen Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
No.
Okay, well, for anyone who has, the Lucien Sanchez character, one of the characters in this sounds like he's doing the Lucien Sanchez thing, but totally seriously. It's like totally bombastic, over enunciated drama. It's really bizarre. But yeah, I think this is a worthy entry in Irish Accent Crimes Corner.
Yeah, I nearly think that it would be a more fun, albeit much less frequent corner if it was kind of like Irish accent. What's the opposite of crimes? Like the Irish Accents Award corner. Because like that is a rare and beautiful unicorn when someone who's not Irish actually affects a semi-decent Irish accent. It just doesn't happen. Like, it just does not happen.
No, it doesn't.
It's just, it's so bad. You know, I was thinking about it though, like, and I think as much as I hate it, and I think it just sounds daft to an actual Irish person, there kind of is very little that they could do about that, because you mentioned this in the previous show, where it's like this accent that they all affect, it's always of the same flavour, and it's like based on a hyper-real notion of what an Irish accent is. I think if they were to actually take a real Irish accent, no one outside of Ireland, or maybe outside of, say, you know, Western Europe, would clock it as an Irish accent, do you know? Like if you take sorry folks for people who don't know anything about Ireland, but if you take a Cavan accent, for example.
Hello people, how's it doing? Today I just want to, I suppose, talk about, I know people find it hard for me to understand me, and maybe they don't want to, some people maybe don't want to understand me, maybe it's for the best they don't. Some people don't understand me, but I just want to give a good shout out because somebody shouted me out today. I was watching this live stream, obviously great YouTuber, great person. We paid a favour by shouting him out.
And you present that as being an Irish accent. It is an Irish accent, but no one outside of Ireland would go, that's authentic. They'd say that's daft. And the same thing for like...
I don't know. Do you think... I think they wouldn't notice the differences in it. They would just hear it as generically Irish and not...
Oh, no. I think they'd hear it as being radically different from the hyper-real Irish accent they're used to. And ergo, it is wrong. Do you know? And I think the same applies for like around where I live, in the southern part of the county. and actually towards the Cavan end of things, the accent gets real funky. And again, that's an authentic Irish accent. But like, you know, if you were to show it to anyone else of Ireland, they'd be like, nah. Same thing for some accents. Like Cork, I don't know. I'm not sure if a lot of people around the world are aware of the Cork accent. And that can sound kind of jarring to them. And even some like Dublin accents, you know, you present like a D4 accent as the standard Irish accent in a work. And people be like, nah, that's not Irish. What are you talking about? I think it's a real catch-22. If you making a film, non-Irish people making a film are kind of almost forced to keep up this pretense of the hyper-real Irish accent because that's the road we started down and we can't really deviate. Which is very sad.
It is.
But anyway, so Irish Accent Crimes Corner installment number Iver number 2.
Iver
So what else do we have in the show notes? Oh yeah. So we talked about secret weird things people do last time. I kind of expected this would happen, but like all the conversation was about secret weird things people do. I'm sorry, Bill. I don't think many people were talking about your work or the Great Fast and Furious thesis. It was all just secret weird things people do. So I've assembled a couple of them that I'm going to go through real quick. That I thought were interesting and perhaps worthy of debate at the end. But we'll go through the list. We have one here from Reasonableism, who that I've titled as two-step drinking. They say their secret weird thing is where they, with a meal, they take a small drink of water or some fluid to lubricate the food hole, and then they eat the entire meal and thereafter finish the drink, which is a little bit strange because most people would assume that the common practice would be to drink whilst eating. Take a bite, drink, take a bite, drink. But this person does a two-step drinking process. A minor ingression of liquid at the start and a major ingression of liquid at the end of the eating process. That's one. Dustin Duchette sent us an email saying that this reminded them of the thing called the serial killer trait. That I think their workmate... workmate referred to as a serial killer trait, where it's...
Oh, yeah, I've heard that phrase, yeah.
I have not. So just for other people like me, it's basically a secret weird thing you do where if it turns out that you're actually a serial killer, people would look at that secret weird thing and be like, that makes sense. Should have connected the dots there. And Dustin Duchette, in a brilliant stroke of comedy, likens it very much to Bill's not looking back when he trips over things. Which, you know, I began thinking about it. I was kind of like, yeah, if I found out Bill was a mass murderer, I would kind of peg those two things together and be like, that was a bit odd, Bill. He was an odd man, and yeah, this all makes sense now.
I like to think if I was a serial killer, well, I would first of all like to think that I wouldn't be, but more importantly, or more relevantly to this rather, I would like to think that if I was a serial killer, I would be smart enough not to like expose myself in such a way.
I'm going to take issue with you're not a serial killer. I think we're all serial killers here, Bill. Right? Because we release a podcast every month in a row and it kills always.
Hey!
Dad jokes. Oh boy, I'm getting old. Dustin Duchette also says that his secret weird thing he does. Sorry, and their co-worker, Dustin Duchette's co-worker, their secret weird thing, or their serial killer trait, is that they like the smell of a walk-in freezer, which is super serial killer vibes, but also I totally get it. I really like that smell too. I also really like the smell of gas stations. There's nothing better than getting out of your car when you're refueling and just taking in all the cancer fumes. It's wonderful. I absolutely adore it. They also say, Dustin also says that they have to wash every glass when they take a drink. They have to wash their glass out at least twice, and that's even if they just put water in it or it's a fresh glass. Doesn't matter. All glasses have to get washed twice, and then we move on. So that was Dustin.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. Just as a kind of a reflexive thing, just swill it around, pour it out, do it again, then ready to drink. Yeah, that one's pretty legit.
Yeah, that's fair. U/Omni314, OmniPie, because maybe it's 3.14. They have their secret weird thing is that when they're walking with someone, that person has to always be on the right of them. Which is another thing I just realized I do. Whenever myself and the captain go for a walk, and if we're holding hands, I have to be on the right. Otherwise, the hand holding doesn't work correctly. Like we don't fit together well. And it's really weird because we notice it. If it happens to be flipped, we like join hands and begin to walk. And then we both look at each other and go like, something's wrong here. And then we switch and we're like, everything's good in the world again. So that's another weird thing that I do as well, along with Omni there. Permanent copycat has their secret weird thing is that they over tie their shoelaces. I think they mentioned that they do like 6 or 7 knots when tying their shoelaces, which it's not so much weird as kind of good insurance.
It feels a little excessive to me. I'm going to be honest.
They're just overly insured. Do you know, most people when they get insurance on their car, for example, they'll buy the basic package because they don't want to spend so much money. But some people will be very, very concerned about it and want to be covered in all instances and all circumstances, and they'll buy the premium package with all the extra stuff on it. What happens if a hurricane came along, Bill? And
third-party fire and theft.
Third-party fire and theft. Oh God, I'm not going to do it now because we'll be here all day. But I at some point I need to complain to you about insurance companies, man. I hate them so much. They're just the worst people, and they've made my life a little bit hellish for the past 2 weeks. They're real, no good. But anyway, like if a hurricane came along, Bill, you / permanent copycat would be sitting here with perfectly tied shoes, and your shoes would be off in like the next county. Who'd be laughing then, Bill?
That is a good point. I'm trying to think of a reasonable way around that, but I don't know if I do.
So then we got one from I can't even begin to pronounce this. Anustart, you / Anus.
And use the art.
Oh, and use the art. It's not one word, Bill. And use the art.
If that is a stealth Arrested Development reference, then excellent username. Thank you for that.
And News the Art writes that their weird thing is that they before they put shoes on, they tap their toes on the ground to like crack them and then stretch them, and then they put the shoes on. Which I think ranks up there as definitely a secret weird thing. I don't really have any justification for why one might do that. But that's definitely up there. And then finally we have you / Olive You Bean, which makes them bean related listener number 3. You / Olive You Bean. They do a weird thing where they pull up their eyelids and so pull taut their eyelids and let go, and then they smack against their eyelids making a clicking noise. They just do that routinely, which again, I think, that's definitely a secret weird thing. Like if you're sitting at a dinner table with a bunch of strangers and you just randomly start smacking your eyelids into your eyeballs, people will be kind of like, that person might be a serial killer. Could well be.
I don't think that one would give me serial killer vibes.
Do you not think so?
No. I don't think so.
It's definitely a secret weird thing, though.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
There may be some kind of... We'll have to make some kind of taxonomic decision here or distinction that there is serial killer vibes are a subset, or serial killer traits are a subset of secret weird things, or that they are separate categories that significantly overlap somehow.
We need a Venn diagram, Bill. There's no way we could understand this without a Venn diagram.
I mean, I guess murdering a load of people would be a serial killer trait, but it probably wouldn't be a secret weird thing. Well, no, it is secret and weird, but I feel like it's not in the spirit of the other secret weird things.
No, not at all. So that was some of the secret weird things that people do. I don't know if that was all of them, but I thought that was some of the selections that stuck out to me. I'm really glad that people really enjoyed that bit. And I'm sorry, Bill, that I completely stole the thunder of like the Fast and Furious thesis and your world building. And it was...
I want to respond to one of those.
Yes, do.
To Omni314. So they and yourself prefer to walk on the right, if
Yes.
they're walking with people. If I am a passenger in a car, so if I'm sitting in the back of the car, or if I'm on a bus, I strongly prefer to be on the on the left-hand side.
Is that because you want to get away from the sight of oncoming traffic?
No.
No, it's nothing to do with that.
Nothing to do with that. I think it came from when I was a teenager, and I used to go to Dublin on the bus, right? I would go up in the morning, and I would be travelling north.
Yeah.
So the sun was to my right, and if I sat on the right-hand side of the bus, then I would get the sun in my face the whole way up, and then I'd have it on my face the whole way down if I sat on the right going south, because it would be on the west, it'd be setting in the west. And it was just like slightly more comfortable to sit then on the left-hand side.
Yeah, that makes sense. I used to do a similar thing as a kid. I used to be brought up to Dublin, or nearly up to Dublin, to Leixlip, for piano lessons when I was very, very young. And the unfortunate thing about that
You went to Leixlip for piano lessons?
yeah, because originally that wasn't the case, but then the piano teacher moved and we really liked her. And yeah, so, Dad was like, let's make an adventure out of it. We'll take a Saturday and it was every 2 weeks, not every week.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was a bit
Still,
it was a bit excessive now that I think about it. But like, you got to remember, like, this is more than 20 years ago in rural Ireland. Not a hell of a lot of like classically trained pianists knocking around,
Yeah.
We didn't exactly have a lot of options. But anyhow, we would go up to Leixlip, and so for people who don't know what Bill was saying there about travelling north to Dublin,
That was 150 kilometres.
it was a trek, yeah. But again, we'd make a day out of it. So like, I used to love it because we'd go early in the morning. I'd have like and the piano lesson was like 2.5 hours long. So it was like, you got a lot in. Possibly too much for a kid of my age, but there you go. But yeah, so you go up, you have like 2.5 hour piano lesson, and then we'd go to like Golden Records, and I'd buy a load of like CDs and stuff, and then we'd have like a meal, and it'd be like a big fancy thing, and we'd drive back in the evening. It was great. I really enjoyed it. But anyway, the point of the story is not to just reminisce, is to say that that was, for listeners, Bill was saying there about going up to Dublin. Bill's trajectory is predominantly a north-south trajectory, or I guess like a northeast-southeast trajectory, whereas my trajectory to Dublin was a straight west to east trajectory. So that meant in the morning time, the bloody blaring, low-hanging winter sun was in your eyes the entire time going to lessons, and then going home, the low-hanging, or like the setting sun was in your eyes going back, and it was really annoying. And there was no, we'll switch sides to get away from the sun. Nope. You were just blinded the entire time. So 300 kilometers in total of staring into the sun. Great crack. That's my little story.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm sorry you didn't have a life hack like I did.
Yeah, no option there. I mean, one could say you could put down the sun visor, but like, who's that smart, Bill?
I just go to sleep because you weren't driving.
That's fair. Poor Dad, like, jeez, but he really liked driving, so I suppose it didn't bother him. But anyhow, so that was follow up, I believe, yeah.
I think that is all the follow up.
Cool. So yeah, give us the summary and then launch into it.
This, in no break whatsoever from my usual custom, is a letter. And it is from Ecairn. It is between two people in Ecairn, one of whom we have actually encountered before, but I will explain that afterwards, perhaps.
Cool.
Allega, I received your last letter with great joy, and read it with great concern. Your recuperation is not yet complete, it seems. The old manias and obsessions yet torment you. My heart is full of concern. The physician and I both urge you to take another sabbatical, and as ever, my estate is at your disposal. Please show them this letter, and every care will be given to you. Mention my name at the depot of Edmere, and you shall be afforded a craft to take you there, and I shall cover the expense. I heard you were once again denied an audience with the Valdin office, and I know the Tamari have told their staff to prevent your entry to their chambers. This route will bear no fruit, Allega, not in your own health, and not in the pursuit of our goals. The companies will only hear of other planets when they can buy and sell them. I say this not just as your colleague, your fellow student, but as your friend. But I know your nature, and I understand that these pleas will move you as little as our study of the cosmos moves a company shareholder. So I have a project for you. Allow me to explain. Early last year, shortly after year's rise, I was on business in Vilve. Commercial business, I should say. That was the sole purpose of this visit. Though while I was there, I chanced to meet a scholar of old acquaintance. He introduced me to some of the learned society of that city, and I was afforded the opportunity to purchase the most peculiar item. A thick glass vial, sealed with wax, containing within several small dark objects. A brownish black, the size of large seeds or small nuts. And seeds indeed they were, as their purveyor informed me, or so he believed. He claimed he had purchased them from a Bini, and that they were the seeds of a plant native not to Cairn, but to the cradle. Desiring to study them in a location removed from interference and observation, I cleared out a greenhouse at my estate, and there experimented with the seeds. Several died without sprouting, until I came upon the correct formulae for their propagation. Heavy heat, limited quantities of water, and soil fertilized by ash and fresh bone meal. The resulting plant is curiously squat and discoloured, even ugly at first, but possessed of a strange wonder and charm upon closer inspection. I suppose it would indeed be curious were a plant from another world to conform to our ideas of beauty. The first generation of plants grown from seeds collected in my own greenhouse shall shortly reach maturity, but I have been unable to return to my estate, and am unlikely to do so in the near future. There is none I would trust more than you to oversee the care of these precious plants, and to make study of their properties. The first harvest was too valuable for me to investigate the flesh, the fruits, and other qualities of the alien. The notes I have taken thus far are stored in the desk in the greenhouse, and will give you further detailed instructions on their care and cultivation. The Bini who sold them related that they have anerogenic properties, though I do not know how this may be achieved. I understand your aversion to such substances, of course. My staff may be available to help you in this manner, once you are certain it is not acutely poisonous. Please, consider this offer. It would do you a world of, or perhaps many worlds, good to your health and to our studies. Your friend, your maiden.
Cool. Okay, so there's a couple of things here. I have a vague memory of this this person being handed that glass vial with stuff in them. I have no memory at all about this Allegra, who apparently is unwell or something. Old manias and obsessions. I don't remember that at all. It feels like that's information I should remember. So, would you give us an overall summary?
It is exactly the other way around.
Oh, okay. Well, then the summary is definitely needed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I never had the thing about the glass vial.
Really?
Until yesterday. Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember it. Allega was the author of something I wrote coming on 2 years ago, called A Fevered Journey, wherein she had a sort of a nightmare or a hallucination of some of the other planets in the system.
I remember
where her consciousness traveled across the system and visited Vasath and visited the cradle.
I remember that now. Yeah, that's fair.
And on the cradle, she felt that she was seen by a figure there, and that woke her from her dream.
Okay, and so this what's his face?
Remaiden.
Remaiden. He's completely new. So do I take it that that Allegra, after having this this DMT-esque vision, she has sought out people to confirm the existence of life on other planets, and this is where she comes into contact with this bloke.
They're known to each other for a long time. They're both kind of students of the esoteric, what they're obliquely referring to here as scholars.
Sure.
It's not like conventional that they were in university together, but they're like occultists, something more like that. It is broadly understood in Cairn that there is humanity on Vasath and on Cradle, but it's kind of it's not really confirmed in any way. It's kind of just believed from old tales and stuff. The way like Europeans 1,000 years ago knew that there were, other places in the world that they hadn't visited, but they didn't really know that much about them. Something kind of akin to that. And their scholarly interest, Alega and Remaiden, is to find out more and to contact the other planets in a more in-depth way to actually get confirmation of this. It is also widely believed that the Bini do travel between planets. There's no real basis for believing that, but it's just kind of assumed by a lot of people that they do.
Oh, that's interesting. So does that imply that this, because the Remaiden was given this thick glass vial by a Bini?
Well, it came second hand. The guy he got it from a Bini.
Sure, but we could if we evoke the unreliable narrator, it could well be that the Bini don't do any interplanetary travel, and this is they just flogged some seeds to someone on the pretense that they came from a different world, but actually they just came from a garden down the road.
Yes, that would be definitely something that is like naysayers and skeptics who scholars who disagree with the opinions of Alega and Remaiden would say. We do know that the Bini do have presence on multiple planets, though. You and I.
Oh yeah, you confirmed that. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, after her experience that I recounted in the fevered journey, Alega had kind of a bit of a breakdown and was trying to get the companies, the Temardi company and the Valdin company, to engage in this idea that there were other planets and that there were people on the other planets, and they're not interested. It's not really relevant to what they do.
That's one of the lines I highlighted. You say here, I understand that these pleas will move you as little as our study of the planet moves a company shareholder. That kind of rang true, because it's one of the things that I think is kind of really sad about the modern world, in that we could well be an maybe not interplanetary, but sol body species. We could be living on the moon, we could have infrastructure on the moon. And one of the reasons we don't is because it's not there's no economic incentive to do so yet. And we won't go, we'll go to the asteroid belt and begin putting infrastructure there as long as once it becomes economically viable for someone to extract all of those resources. But we humans don't operate on the sort of, wouldn't it just be, great for expanding horizons? It's always about, the dollar. And that's really frustrating, It's really, and I've said this before, definitely off air, but maybe even on air, that I think we are born at the exact wrong time, because we are literally just a little bit too soon for being an interplanetary species, and I don't think we will be interplanetary in our lifetimes. But I could see it happening the next maybe, 200-300 years. So I'm just kind of like, why couldn't I just have been born like 200-300 years later? I want to go to Mars, but there's no bloody economic incentive to go to Mars at the moment. Ah, terrible.
Yeah, kind of sucks.
Yeah. And broadly as well, like, I think, you know, there's so much science, I think, is obviously, look, I'm not a scientist here. I'm just some bloke on the internet, but to my mind, so much science is stifled because there is no economic purpose to it, which is so anti-human, because our whole thing about being human is our ability to think and reason and to understand. And since economics have arisen, that has subsided, given way to economic pressures, and I think that's really sad.
And the other side of that is because scientific endeavor must justify itself. It must show results of some kind in order to get funding and whatever. That leads to bad science, because people want to like make things look different than they are, or better than they are, so that they can justify getting further funding.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just
that also sucks.
And I think it's really anti-human, because it's part of our nature to be inquisitive, and we have to cull that inquisitiveness within us for the sake of economic pressures. So anyway, to tie that back in, I feel Allegra's pain when she's kind of like, guys, come on, there's so much more out there. Come on. And they're just all like, yeah, but it doesn't pay the bills. And you're like, oh, no. But I suppose in the context of this story, though, it's a good thing, though, that the companies aren't interested, because otherwise the companies will just go and colonize the bejesus out of the other planets.
Or, try.
Yeah. That's fair.
But they don't have the capacity to do that, at least, so they can't get there. So
yeah, well, yes, I mean, but again, like, if there's a strong enough economic incentive, they will gain the capacity, surely.
Like there are going to be limits on their like technological ability to do so, though.
Yeah, but I mean, in this context, surely they just need to get cozy with the B'nai.
Easier said than done.
I'm really interested in the B'nai. I always have been. We need to learn more about the B'nai. Anyhow, sorry, your summary. You were summarizing.
No, I think that was it. So yeah, Maiden, he bought these seeds from some guy he met in a pub who said that they were alien seeds. And he is growing them. He has successfully grown one kind of crop of them. And then replanted the seeds from that crop, and hasn't been able to go back to continuous studies on it, and is asking Allegra to do so she can take a break from making a public spectacle of herself. Ranting about fairy tales in front of capitalist colonizers.
Poor Allegra. Poor Allegra. What is an onirogenic? What the hell is that?
Its literal meaning would be creates dreams or induces dreams. I'm just using it here as kind of a analog for hallucinogenic.
Oh, so it's a psychedelic. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Is it in any way you're never going to divulge this, but let's just try anyways. Is this in any way linked to perhaps getting to these planets? Like, does one travel in the mind to these planets, and these planets are the medium by which it's done?
Oh, well, I mean, we know Allegra already has done so, or at least believes she has done so.
Right, but what I mean is, like, would the B'nai be the one? Is that how the B'nai interact with these planets?
Oh.
And might this be why a B'nai trader has those seeds on them in the first place? Like, that's the tool they use to traverse space.
I hadn't considered that. It may be an element, but they do physically travel. They are physically present. Yeah, the B'nai are physically present where they are. It's not just a projection or whatever.
Because I got a slight Star Trek Discovery vibes there with like a mycelium network, and like the idea of like I realize, well, hold on, mycelium is mushroom, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm really bad with like the what is a plant and what is not and all that sort of jazz. But these feel related. Like mycelium network in Star Trek, and then you have this like plant that has these psychedelic properties and perhaps functions similarly. So in my mind, they were linked.
Fun biology fact.
Fun biology fact.
Fungi and animals are more closely related to each other than either of them are to plants.
Yeah, that's why I had to stumble there, because I was like, wait a minute, I can't say that they both are plants. Because in my head, I'm like, oh, fungi go on the ground. They are plants.
Yeah.
They don't walk around the place. They are plants. But yes, yeah, you're right. I remember hearing that. It was in the back.
And in like Dungeons and Dragons, mushroom people are considered a plant monster, which is totally taxonomically inaccurate. But anyway.
Oh, we need to cancel D&D is what we need to do. Cool. So do I take it that you are building up to writing more about the other worlds and the interaction between them?
Well, we've already gotten a bit about Vasath.
Yeah, sure.
And we've already gotten the first stuff I wrote in this setting was actually on Cradle.
Yeah, with the harpy like people, or was that Vasath?
That was Vasath.
That was Vasath.
The Cradle was in Lamo.
That's
and
right.
The polytheistic kingdom and the king and the expansive empire to the north.
But will we get to see more interaction between these places in the future?
Possibly. But for the moment, because of the various because the technologies available, the Bini will be the primary movers of any kind of interplanetary trade or interplanetary contact.
Sure. Yeah, that's really dope. I gotta say, it was an exciting read.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there was lots of intrigue, like a glass vial sealed with wax containing several dark objects, and like a plant native not to Cairn, but to the Cradle, and it was like, whoa, this is exciting. So I really enjoyed it. That was really good.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing more about it. Have you got any further closing remarks?
On
that, because that's most of my points.
No, I think we covered pretty much everything.
Cool. Excellent. So shall we do some of my creative output stuff?
Absolutely.
My creative output stuff. Jesus Christ, Edgar. Oh. So since we last recorded, I have posted a video about tones called Game of Tones. I've posted the follow-up to that, and I've also posted a Woolurst video. Unless you have something to add about the follow-up video and the Woolurst video, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Game of Tones, if that's okay.
I have some questions and such, but yeah, you talk away, and I'll put in my questions at the end.
Well, pertaining to Game of Tones?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh no, give me your questions off the start.
So 60 to 70% of languages have lexical tone.
Yes, to some degree.
That is mad.
Yeah, isn't it? And
it seems like so many.
We always think of tone as being, at least the lay person thinks of tone as being this weird, exotic phenomenon that only
lay Anglophone person.
Exactly, yeah. But that's not the case. Like I mentioned in the follow-up video, we are the weird ones. Like English is weird for not employing lexical tone in any way, shape, or form. Most languages, the majority of languages are tonal to an extent.
But my question then is, what percentage of speakers speak a tonal language? Because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of languages that have dozens or hundreds of speakers. And I would guess a lot of major world languages don't. Like English, major world language, doesn't have lexical tone. I don't understand that Spanish does. I don't know whether Hindi or Urdu do.
I don't know if Hindi does, but Punjabi does.
Okay.
There are a good chunk of languages on the Indian subcontinent that are tonal. Hold on, let me just get a quick.
Yeah, Hindi is not.
Hindi is not. So apparently I googled the population of Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
That is 500 million. No. Yes, 500 million. 676,855,910 apparently. What?
That's like the 10 at the end is always just amusing.
yeah, that's actually it's a good point. It's like, why not 11? Like, are you sure you counted everyone? It feels like a number that is way too certain for what it's counting. But yeah, so like that's 500 million people, over 500 million people in Southeast Asia, and like the vast majority of those will speak languages that have some degree of tone in them, because like, you know, Chinese, like Mandarin, Cantonese, Thai, Japanese.
Well, are Mandarin and Cantonese spoken widely there?
Oh, sorry, yeah. I need to find this better. The Southeast Asia is just, yeah. What would you call the geographic region that is like Southeast plus China and the Korean Peninsula and Japan?
Well, I mean, if we're including Korean Peninsula, Japan, and China, it's going to be way more than 500 million, because there's over 1 billion people just in China.
Yeah, but what would you call that region though? That encompasses all of that, just like East Asia,
I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
East and Southeast Asia. I don't know.
Well, now I'm getting a 1.5 billion. Hold on. Let me just have a quick look. What sort of map will Wikipedia give me? Oh, East Asia is just giving me China, Mongolia, the Korean Peninsula, Japan, Taiwan, that sort of jazz.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like maybe 2 billion people, maybe, if you include Southeast Asia and China, Korea, Japan, all that sort of jazz. Like a good chunk of those 2 billion people will be speaking tonal language. So that's a massive chunk of possibly, well, but then Yoruba is another language. It's a language in Nigeria that's spoken by another, I'm going to imagine maybe 20, 30 million people. Like I wouldn't be surprised if it's a minority of speakers as a whole. 50 million speakers.
50 million native speakers.
Well, there you go. So
Nigeria is really big.
It's very big, and also Yoruba. It doesn't conform to the nation state of Nigeria. It spills out all over the place.
Sure.
But like, I wouldn't be surprised if it is a minority of speakers that speak tonal languages. But it would either be a very, very strong minority or maybe a small majority. Either way, tone super common.
Yeah.
Super. And then of course, you know, you have Swedish, Norwegian, you know, in Europe that have a little bit of tone going on. Apparently Turkish does too. It's like a stress accent, and yeah. So, No, another point.
So there are. I don't think this came up in the video. I might have missed it if it did. Can you have complex tonal contours with 3 specified states? So low rising to high, falling to mid, for example.
Yeah, so that's kind of what Mandarin does.
Okay.
Because Mandarin, like the way the Mandarin's dipping tone, its third tone is usually shown on a graph, is that you start somewhere in the middle, drop down to the lowest register of all the tones, and then go higher, way higher than the middle. So it has an asymmetric curve. And I listened to a couple of Chinese speakers, like teaching Chinese on YouTube, and they all refer to it like that. They don't just go high, low, high. They go more mid, low, high.
And can you have are there any languages that have a distinction between low, say mid, low, high, and high, low, high?
Mid, low, high, high, low, high. No, because I can't say that for sure. For certain,
because that's the same contour, but with one only uses 2 states, the other uses 3.
Yeah, I would say no. Or I would say that it's going to be extremely rare, because in general, when languages have the same type of contours, they'll split them apart in the pitch space so that there's a kind of a clear distinction.
Yeah.
So the example given in one of the books I was reading would that it would be extremely rare to have like a 3 a 3-1 falling tone. So like from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 high to low, 3-1 falling tone, and then to have like a 4-1 falling tone, because they're too similar. What you'd often find is you'd have a 3-1 falling tone and then like a 5-3 falling tone. So it's split by upper and lower register. So language will try to like distinguish those orally. So I can't say for certain that like drastically similar complex contours exist or not, but I suspect my gut would be that they'd be incredibly unlikely to crop up because of that, because of the what's the word I'm looking for? Ability to be misunderstood because they're so similar.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I will say just really quickly on the Mandarin's dipping tone. I've heard that it in fact, and this is so weird, I don't understand why, and if someone with a linguistics degree could send us an email, I would love this. Apparently, Mandarin's dipping tone, like so, ma, the thing that dips down and goes up, that's not a dipping tone. Apparently, that is analysed as being a low-level tone, which fries my brain, and I don't understand what's going on, and it makes no sense to me, because quite clearly you can hear it going, ma, you can hear it doing the thing. But apparently...
And you can hear that in native speakers. That's not a thing that, like, is affected by... like second language learners and is allophonic to the actual third tone.
No, you can definitely hear it in native speakers.
Okay.
100%. But like apparently linguists analyze it as just a low tone, which again, I just don't understand how they're doing that or why they're doing that. So yeah, if someone with a linguistics degree would like to write into me and explain to me why the hell that's occurring, that would be great, because that baffles me. But anyway, point number whatever we're on, I forget.
What are heavy syllables, Edgar?
So, oh crap. This is one of those things, Bill, where I'm always conscious about, do I need to explain everything I say? And how much can I rely on it being covered in previous videos? This is one of those times where I was kind of like, I think I've talked about this before when I was talking about phonotactics way back in the day. And I was like, I think I'm going to save the words and not explain it fully. And I probably should have. So heavy syllables are syllables that have a coda or like a long vowel. So a syllable like can, like C-A-N, that's a heavy syllable, whereas a syllable like ka is a light syllable.
So if it's followed by a consonant, it counts as heavy?
It can vary. It can vary sometimes. I think Wikipedia gives an example of something that in English looks like it should be a heavy syllable, but in fact it's better analysed as not being. But basically it's just like it takes up more room.
Right.
That's it. It lasts for longer. It takes up more room.
So yeah, okay, so when you say a long vowel, you actually mean like temporal or phonemic length, not the way that we say in English that E is a long vowel.
No. So like, a light syllable would be...
I hate that. It's really annoying.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'll rant about Turkish in a second, actually, about the way they talk about vowels, and it drives me nuts. But so a light syllable would be like ka, and then a heavy syllable would be like ka.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's phonemic length. The thing about Turkish that I don't know if this is all Turkish speakers think this way, but I was again listening to a Turkish lady on YouTube teach vowel harmony in research for the vowel harmony videos, and I can't remember the exact thing she says, but she explains vowel harmony and why it occurs and how the different vowels are divided up, and she used the exact wrong terminology. She said something like, "Oh, this group of vowels, they're like back vowels." I think is the word she used. They're like back in the mouth, and this group of vowels, they're like front vowels. And so we have words that only have back vowels or only have front vowels. And I remember looking at it and being like, "But that's like linguistically, that's completely inaccurate." Like what she was referring to as back was literally front vowels. And what she was referring to as front was literally back vowels. And it's that thing about like the distinction between the difference between like strict rigorous linguistic terminology and how we talk about these things.
Yeah.
Like what you were saying about the long vowels in English. Like they're not long vowels, but we use that terminology and it just conflicts sometimes, and it's really frustrating.
Yeah, that kind of thing is difficult until you're properly familiar with both things.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing where most
and
people...
then even then you have to remember to kind of mentally code switch.
Exactly. And that's the thing that most people won't be familiar with, because like most people won't have any sort of knowledge of the IPA, nor would they need to have any sort of knowledge of the IPA, really. But yeah, anyhow, so that's that one. Point number X plus 1.
From the follow-up video, how could the earliest human languages be tonal if tonal genesis works as you described? Because it requires a substrate, or requires a language to evolve the tones from by replacing other things. So
that, Bill, that is such a great question. Thank you so much. That is essentially going to be the topic for part 2 of tonal videos, or tone videos. Just the short and sweet of it is that
I know you said it wasn't everyone believes that it's just a theory, but that seems like a major flaw in that theory.
No, but here's why it's not a major flaw. In that, so there's basically 2 types of tonal language, right? Because in the video I just made, I just focused on here's how to generate tones, but I made no comment about the types of tonal languages and how we deal with them in conlang. That's part 2. In that video I'm going to talk about the complex contour tone languages, which basically, just when you hear that word, think the languages of Southeast Asia. Like the way they do tone is called complex tone languages. And then basically, barring very, very few exceptions, all the other tonal languages around the world do tone in a completely different way. And that's called register tone. They're register tone languages. So there's kind of 2 different strategies with tone. In the realms of conlang, at least, and possibly also in general linguistics, complex contour tone languages have to be evolved, because that's what we see occurring. Like Old Chinese, for example, it didn't have tone, but modern Chinese does, and we can track the evolution thereof. But in register tone languages, we see that tones just go back all the way back. They just keep going, and they're handled in very different ways. So if you want to go for a Southeast Asian / East Asian style tonostatic, where you have an isolating language with a bunch of tones, you have to evolve it as per the video. Whereas if you want to do with a quote unquote normal tonal language, because most tonal languages don't do what East Asia does, they don't need to be evolved strictly. They can just be said to exist in the proto-lang.
Wait, sorry, say that again. So you're saying that the East Asian ones have it in the proto-lang?
No, don't. They have to be evolved.
Sorry.
Yeah, tone needs to be evolved with an East Asian style tonal language.
Right.
And,
but Yoruba or whatever, for example, doesn't.
It doesn't necessarily, if you're going for that aesthetic. Now, I don't know if Proto-Yoruba or whatever was tonal all the way back, but there are examples of non-East Asian tonal language that just go tone all the way back. And a good example of this, and one that kind of blows people's minds a little bit, is that Proto-Indo-European is tonal.
Oh.
Yeah, so we've tracked back Proto-Indo-European all the way to the beginning, and it's just tonal. Tones were already there, and it was a register tone language. Now this leads me on to a point I want to talk about real quick, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Because I'm getting quite a bit of heat for this assertion, and I just want to clarify so people understand, because I can already see people writing comments and being like, "There's no way, PIE was tonal, Edgar. That's ridiculous." So you know the way you have languages like Swedish and Norwegian and Japanese that are called stress, pitch accent languages.
I think so. Summarize it just so I'm sure. So
TLDR, without getting into it, these are basically languages that are tonal, but just do it in a very, very, very minimal way. So they usually have hardly any tones, and they only crop up in very, very sparse places. It's basically where a pitch accent language is where you have a tone language that's so depleted of tones that it kind of begins to sort of resemble like a stress language, like English or Spanish or whatever. And it's basically the grey area where these two worlds collide, where you have a non-tonal language and a tonal language. And if you deplete the tones so much that stress begins to become more prominent, you're in the middle there, and that's called a pitch accent language.
And it could be like an intermediary stage between a fully tonal and exclusively stress-based.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Like, I'm pretty sure, barring some email that I get, that if you have tone exodus, like the loss of tones, you can go through this stage to just lose them completely. But anyway, so people tend to treat pitch accent languages like Japanese and Swedish and Norwegian, etc., as not being tonal languages, as being a class apart. And it's the same shtick with Proto-Indo-European. Proto-Indo-European was a pitch accent language, and people hear pitch accent and go, that's not tone. Whereas I've adopted a definition of tone from a linguist called Moira Yip in her book Tone in the Cambridge University Press, published by Cambridge University Press, links in the show notes, where she basically asserts that she takes the position that many other linguists take, that a tonal language is any language where at least some morphemes, their lexical meaning is realized by tone, right? So that covers everything from Mandarin, where like all of the morphemes are distinguished by tone, all the way down to the likes of Swedish, where only a small subset are distinguished by tone. Basically, if you have any sort of tone going on that distinguishes one word from another or one morpheme from another, it's a tonal language. Period. And so by that distinction, by that definition, PIE is a tonal language. Even though a lot of people would say it's not, it's a pitch accent language, but pitch accent is subsumed under this broad definition of what tone is.
For the definition of tonal language that you're working with, which it may not be the one everyone uses, but yeah.
Well, I would assert, I think Moira Yip is up there in terms of linguists who have studied tone, and she cites a bunch of. I might actually in the show notes just leave the quote from the book, but she cites a bunch of other linguists who also take this stance as well. So I don't think this is a controversial definition.
No, sure, yeah.
I think people have heard pitch accent and they just think that must be different, whereas really it's just a big massive sliding scale and it's all tonal. And that fits with the whole idea of like 60 to 70% of world's languages are tonal.
Yeah.
You would expect that a lot of languages that maybe you didn't think were tonal are in fact tonal, given that 70% of them are tonal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to put that in before someone wrote an email and was like, Proto-Indo-European was not tonal, like, or what are you talking about? That's the definition of tone I'm working with and other linguists are working with, and ergo, it is tonal. It's just in a very mild way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Cool. Point number X plus 3.
Well, I think we've covered all of my tones here, or all of my points here.
Cool.
I was going to ask about like reconstructing Proto-Semitic or whatever. So they have done that and seen that there is a precursor language or an ancestral language to Mandarin that isn't tonal, and they know where it happened.
Yes, I believe that's Old Chinese. The language we called Old Chinese did not have tones.
Cool.
And they've done
that. Like, I can kind of get a bit about historical linguistics and reconstructing pronunciations. You know, like there's what's it called? OT or OP productions of Shakespeare or whatever.
Yes.
But like doing it for finding out whether tone is there is crazy. I don't know how you would do that. It's very interesting to me.
Well, I mean, look. If I have, if there's a proto-lang, right? We have a word in a proto-lang, pat, right? And then we find two daughter langs that are related, and then one has pat with no tone, and one has pa, where the T is lost, but there's a high tone. That is one data point to suggest that maybe the loss of that T at the end brought about that high tone. And then if you do that exhaustively, you'll begin to follow correlations, and you can go, oh yeah, it was the loss of coda consonants that created that tone.
Well, when you put it like that, it seems obvious, Edgar.
but the thing that makes it so difficult, again, not a field linguist here, right? So I don't actually know, but I've read that tonal genesis is like amazingly flaky, and there's loads of places where you'd have like two related languages, and you'd go, oh, I see what's happening here. This is how tone is being generated. So we'd expect that these words would have, say, high tones, because everyone else in his family is doing this. And for reasons completely unexplained and no one knows, this one language will just do the opposite. And like no one knows, and like everyone just throws their hands up and goes, I don't know, tone's weird.
Fair enough.
So it makes life extremely difficult. But yeah, it's certainly more tricky than like just reconstructing accents or that sort of crack. But like it's doable. Like we clearly have done it.
I mean the way you explained it there, the data actually seems more solid to me, that you can just say compare two things and like two different evolutions of it, rather than trying to figure out which words were meant to rhyme with each other.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, obviously, IRL, it's a lot harder than that. Like, you can't just go, pat goes to pat and pa, problem solved. Like, that's just, it's more complicated. But
another hard day at the linguistics factory. Done.
It still blows my mind that we were able to do that. Like, that was one of those. I think a lot of people, when they enter into the conlang space, their first reaction, their first like instance of mind blow is when they go, oh my god, languages can actually be written. That's dope. This is incredible. I never really had that, because I kind of always just made sense to me. Because I was like, I mean, yeah, of course, you could just decide to write a language. Like, I can make up a bunch of words and make a language.
Sorry, by written you mean like created? Created,
yeah, you could write your own language, yeah. But the thing that the first instance of like complete mind blow for me was when I found out that we can reconstruct languages, and I was like, this is like a time machine. And I was like, wait, you mean to tell me that I can, to like a certain degree of like certainty, speak like a person who lived thousands of years ago? Are you kidding me? That's nuts. And like that thing, that just absolutely blew my mind. And then went on a binge of trying to learn how to speak PIE and that sort of crack. And it's just that is something that I'm like, well done, humans. That is awesome. Fair play.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. The only problem, not problem, but the only great sadness here is that I don't think we'll ever be able to find like a proto world. We just can't. The fog of war is too thick, and we'll never be able to go back far enough to just be able to say like languages started here and this is what it could have sounded like. We just can't do that, and that's really sad.
If there is such a one, if it didn't kind of, I mean, I would imagine that there must be, but if it didn't sort of arise independently more than once
in several places, and there's also this is just completely anecdotal and something I've discussed with other non-linguists, so take this with all the grains of salt possible, but it could be an idea that if we were to go back far enough, we may find something that is just, for want of a better word, it's so alien that we'd find it hard to think of it in terms of how we conceive languages now, so it's kind of almost meaningless to be able to go back to that sort of point. But again, part of me is just kind of like, wouldn't it be cool though? Like, if I got a time machine, man, there's no way. I'm not going back and killing Hitler, at least not straight away. I'm going back and finding out when the first word was uttered, or when the first subordinate clause was uttered. That sort of stuff really appeals to me. And then we'll take care of Hitler. But first language.
I would mostly spend it going to concerts.
Going to concerts?
Yeah.
What? Why?
To like see Rage Against the Machine in like 1992. That would be so cool. Or like go to like iconic musical events.
Oh man, I literally couldn't disagree with you more here, because you could just be like, if it's tape, just watch the tape.
That's not the same thing at all.
Yes, but Bill, you have a time. You can go back to like the formation of Earth and watch that if you want, but instead you're going to go back and watch Rage Against the Machine in 1992. Like, there's so much more interesting stuff that you literally can't consume ever if you had a time machine. Don't go for the concerts.
Yeah, but like, it's not like we're short on time, Edgar.
Oh, because we have a time machine.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the time machine only has a limited fuel capacity.
We'll just like time travel to where we can get more fuel.
Oh yeah, that's the issue. This is like the asking the genie to wish for more wishes. Can't be doing that to me, Bill. But yeah, language is dope, and I wish we could. I would love if we were able to reconstruct a proto world. That would be so. It'd be so cool. But unfortunately not. So those were all your points, you said, yeah?
I think so. Those are all of my points concerning tone.
Brill. So yeah, my only point to bring up was just to reiterate the idea of like the distinction of tone I'm working with and how that assumes pitch accent systems. That was the only point I wanted to bring up because yeah, again, a lot of people like I think Swedish speakers or people who were advocating on behalf of Swedish were like they're very much against like I don't agree with you that Swedish is a tonal language, whereas I'm pretty steadfast in that assertion. I think that is accurate. All right, so that's Writer's Room done. Do you want to go and do some Red Mars?
Let's.
So, Green Room, it's Artifexian Book Club Corner. We're going to talk about Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson. I got that correct, didn't I? Yes. So, there will be no more content after this. The only thing I will say is just, you can stop listening in a second now. The only thing I will say is that Obelisk Gate, the second book of the Broken Earth series, that's going to be the next book for review. So pick that guy up if you want to read it, and we'll review that in a month or two. Yeah, so from here on in, it's exclusively Red Mars. No more content after this. Spoilers galore. So you've been warned. Stop listening at this point if you so desire. No?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Red Marsville. Do you want to give a brief synopsis and give me your thoughts?
Red Mars is the first book in a trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson, who's an American writer, and it charts the beginning, the first 40 years or so, 35, 40 years of human settlement on Mars. The cultural and political and economic and social and kind of, it even touches on kind of the spiritual implications and ramifications of such an endeavor.
That's a remarkably good synopsis. You're very good at this.
Yeah.
Very good at the synopsis. So, what do you think of this book? Do you like it?
I love this book.
You love this book. Okay.
Yeah, I've read it a few times before. I really, really enjoy it. I get a lot out of it.
So, can you explain why?
There's such beauty in it, and the descriptions of the descriptions of Mars, of the landscape and the people's reactions to it, I find really, really powerful. I find all the relationships in it really interesting, and it explores things in a really kind of in-depth way. Like there's no one who you see things from so many different points of view with the different characters in a way that I think is really effective, and everyone's kind of unreliable to a degree in different ways. I think he's a really great author.
So intellectually, I get that, right, and that all makes sense. But I enjoyed the book overall, but I found it to be a little bit dull, and a bit of a slog in parts. It's a big book, man.
It's thick, yeah.
It's a thick book, and some of it was quite boring.
The last section of it is a bit of a slog, I find. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like intellectually, I agree, and obviously the big philosophical debates which we're going to get into about like to terraform and to not terraform and what does that mean and what to say about us, like that's really interesting and stuff. But in the same way that a philosophy paper is really interesting, but I wouldn't read that as entertainment, So I guess I've kind of mixed feelings about this book. Yeah, just because of the length and the in parts the drudgery of it. I agree with your assessment about the descriptions of Mars are very awe-inspiring and very beautiful. And I found it really funny at one point. They're doing some study of the landscape of Mars, and they basically go on a big talk about glaciation. They talk about like, oh, there's like U-shaped values, but like there's no striation marks, so it wouldn't be a thing made by ice. And I was like, Kim Stanley Robinson got in his time machine and he watched an Artifexian video. Fair play. And I was like, and because like, and it particularly hit me because there are points when I'm making those geography style videos where I'm like, will people actually use this in their fiction? Like, will this even inform anything at all? Or am I just giving a geography lesson like in school? And it actually felt really good to read Kim Stanley Robinson there and be all like, yeah, he's taking what we know about glaciation and applying it here. And that's kind of dope.
He's an Artifexian fan.
He's an Artifexian fan, and that made me very happy. But and also the description of some of the structures they put up as well is quite awe-inspiring. Like, to talk about like these, like, you know, the space elevator, like that's the whole construction of that and how it was constructed and how it like collapsed and things. Spoilers. It was just like, it was quite awe-inspiring. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
No. The another issue I had at the start, I don't know if you clocked this, was that there was he presents Mars as a real melting pot of different cultures and things like that. But
as the story progresses, yeah.
Oh, well, you know, even at the very, very start, because at the start, isn't it?
Like in the first 100, the different nationalities represented.
Yeah, but remember, you know, at the very, very start where we get the murder scene thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of in a more modern Mars. It's like a flash forward, isn't it?
Yeah, so it starts in 2052, I think, and then it goes backwards about 30 years, or about 25 years.
We are not going to Mars by 2052. I'll tell you that much.
No.
That's not going to happen. There's no space.
In fairness, it was written in 1993, so he had a bit more of a lead in.
I think you should always just overestimate these things. Like,
yeah.
just make it that you go to Mars in 3000. 2052. But anyway, at the very, very start, though, we are given a populated Mars, and you know, you have there's a big Arab contingent, a big Swiss contingent. There's a festival going on, like it's this bubbling place, and I get like that's a really cool thing to present. It's almost like a neo New York, if you will. In that just like it's this big melting pot of all different people. But I found some of his descriptions of the people to be like, I don't know, like a little bit racist. Did you get that?
Yeah, I on this reading, I was kind of thinking about stuff like that I hadn't picked up before. And that's actually one of the things I have written down here. I have national stereotypes ? Written in my notes here.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is it's the narrator's voice, not his personal voice.
Sure.
That and it's interesting from the point of view of the two American point of view characters that we get, John and Frank, and it's Frank who is the point of view character for the first bit, and he is friendly and sympathetic to the Arabs, but he wants to use them as a tool. They're kind of a means to an end for him, and whereas John is more overtly bigoted, even though he's kind of nominally the more sort of heroic character, or the more idealist kind of character, but that's just because he's kind of an American chauvinist, and because he's got this whole anti-religion thing in him anyway. So the comparisons of the two sort of types of bigotry that we saw there were interesting. Based on his other work, based on Kim Stanley Robinson's other work. And I know you can't be expected to know that just from reading this book. I would expect that is largely to do with kind of unreliable narration.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But it's not for me to say, I suppose. But that would be my suspicion and my hope.
Yeah, it did stick out though. It stuck out like a sort of like, imagine if you were to read like the diaries of I don't know, a Victorian gentleman on a gap year. Going through the empire, you'd expect the sort of stereotypes he might write of the people he encounters to read a little bit like this. And I take your point that it makes sense, but it's just kind of, it's quite jarring to hear, particularly when
there's also like the kind of the neurotic dramatic Russian one, and then the existentialist Frenchman. And they even point out near the start about like trying not to mysticize Hiroko and turn her into sort of an Oriental dragon lady, and then the narrative kind of does that anyway.
Oh, kind of. It hard does that.
Yeah, it does that.
Yeah, she becomes like, a mystic shaman-esque character throughout it. Yeah, so that was kind of I don't know, it stuck out to me. So that was one point, and the only other point I have on it, like I think is like a big talking point that maybe we can get into, is I felt like the central like question of this book was the terraforming issue, and is it okay for humans to terraform another planet? What are your thoughts on this? Like, do you care? What camp do you fall into? Would you be, if we were to go to Mars tomorrow and this was a political issue that was raised, where do you think you'd fall on the spectrum of terraform or not?
I care very much.
Oh.
And I am totally paralyzed by the question.
What's that? As in, like, you just can't answer one way or the other?
Yeah.
That's probably the best stance to have. I used to be hard against it. So I used to be like, we're wrecking nature.
Yeah.
And let nature be. But then there's a line in this book, I can't quote it, but it was something to the effect of, when you invoke imagery of ruining something, that necessarily means ruining to an observer, right? And if we're the only conscious observers of the place, we cannot ruin it for anyone but ourselves. So kind of who cares? And then I was kind of like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And I was like, if we took Valles Marineris there on Mars and instead of took it from a desert and turned it into a lush, green valley, does that make it any less beautiful? And surely that would increase its beauty because the observers can go to observe it now, and treasure it and keep it, etc. Whereas I think if you keep it in the state of a barren rock, you might run the risk that people are more likely to treat it as like an unbeautiful thing that we can just blow up or whatever extract for minerals. But if we turn it into this beautiful place, people may be less likely to do that. So I find myself...
I don't think a place being beautiful makes it less likely to be exploited, dude.
Well, no, that's fair. But
they are hardcore dynamiting the entirety of mountains all over Appalachia just to get the stuff inside and then rebuilding the mountain.
Yeah, and then, like destroying the rainforest, etc. Yeah, but I suppose I'll frame it a different way. If a huge amount of capital was put into turning Valles Marineris into a lush green paradise, maybe investors might be a little bit less keen to destroy it because they've sunk an investment into it. Whereas if it's just a barren rock and the only investment is the travel time to get out there, people might be more likely to we'll just blow the crap out of it. And that's a slightly different case than Earth because no capital was sank into making Appalachia. Do you know, that just exists there. So everyone's kind of like, I didn't pay for it, let's blow the hell out of it. Whereas this would be a constructed thing where capital has been sunk into.
Yeah, but I mean, that's applying and I know you're consciously doing this, but that's applying a judgment of that a lush valley is more beautiful and more worthy than rocks.
Yeah, but you're right. I am doing it consciously, but also the lush value is kind of a secondary effect of there being an atmosphere to sustain it, so that humans can be there to observe it at will. Outside of spacesuits and vehicles and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I found myself swinging the other way and being like almost like a terraform extremist, just to be like, yeah, first thing we should do is terraform the bejesus out of it, to make it more habitable for us, so that we can appreciate it better, because we're the only ones that will appreciate it, because so far there's no other life. And then also the other point was being that the idea of treating Mars or any planet as kind of unique and a thing to be protected, I don't know, in a sort of cold clinical way of thinking about it, you might say to yourself, well, that's kind of a bit folly because there's probably a gajillion Marses all over the galaxy there. So what's the problem with terraforming this one instance of a rocky or a sandy rocky planet, do you know?
Well, in that case, because it's going to be tens of thousands of years before we would be able to get to any of the other ones. So
yeah, I mean more like if we take it that beauty's in the eye of the beholder, you need an observer to witness these things. If there is other sentient life out there, they will likely have their own Mars somewhere, like a rocky sandy planet. That's probably going to be extremely common. So us terraforming our one doesn't take that much away from
the universe.
And other sentient races aren't going to knock on our door one day and be like, you destroyed the only instance of rocky sandy planet, you monsters. They'd be like, yeah, whatever, man, we've like there's 50 of those like in our little neighborhood, it's grand, like whatever. Part of me is thinking that also kind of makes sort of sense. So I've become more of a terraforming extremist after reading this book. You're still on the fence. You still don't know which way to go. Do you lean any particular way?
I lean both ways, depending on the way I think about it. I could see persuasive arguments on both sides, which I think are and both are fairly outlined. I think in the novel. I mean, ultimately, Sachs kind of wins the argument. But I don't think it's clear that he is necessarily in the right. And it is a continuing debate over the rest of the series. Like, it doesn't just end that, like, at the end of Red Mars, oh well, we're going to terraform. It is an ongoing discussion for the entire series.
But I'm assuming, given the titles of the books, they continued terraforming.
Sure, but the degree to which and what can be preserved and various other things become elaborated upon, and the Reds. I don't know if they really use the factions that much in Red Mars. So the Reds are the anti-terraformers and the Greens are the pro-terraformers. And that becomes like much more important as the series continues. And the way their things evolve and change over the course of the series is important.
That terminology I think is great because the Greens, we associate green with environmentalism, and the process of terraforming like naturally means polluting this atmosphere, but yet they call themselves the Greens for obvious reasons.
It's kind of anti environmentalism for the existing environment that is there. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's just a real fun little thing there. What about? Do you have any thoughts on like non-terraforming? So no terraforming, but having humans be on Mars, because like any human interaction with Mars is going to a degree alter Mars, right?
Yeah.
So do you feel strongly about the idea of like, okay, we won't terraform, but we're going to put up a whole bunch of like domes everywhere and space habitats and that sort of crack? Like, do you see that as being a different type of thing or a terraforming light, or how do you feel about that?
I would have fewer qualms about it. Yeah, I'd have fewer reservations about it.
So in that you'd be okay with it occurring?
Yeah.
Okay.
More okay, yeah. I mean, like, you can't ever not impact a place. And we've left footprints on the moon which will never be erased except by further human action. But that doesn't bother me.
Would your paralysis with the terraform be swayed in any way with like if there's a human cost to it? In that, like, as is often proposed, and I think is proposed in Red Mars, that the Earth is basically going down the tubes, massively overpopulated and polluted, and
oh boy,
everything's awful. Like, if there's a pressing need to basically have a bunch of like Earth refugees. And let's say that, it's somehow more cost effective let's say it's just more cost effective to terraform as opposed to bringing over a whole bunch of parts to build tons of space habitats or whatever. Would you feel more inclined to go like, well, okay, we have an inanimate object here that we can destroy, or we can...
Oh, yeah.
So in that case, you'd be more terraform, let's get people safe.
Yeah, I mean, the continued existence of life, like if it is a binary choice between the extinction of humanity and terraforming Mars, if somehow that was presented strictly as a binary choice, yeah, terraform, absolutely.
Do you still... Sorry, this is an awful lot of me trying to figure out where you stand on this. I'm sorry if this is really boring to people. And you, Bill, I'm sorry if you find this boring.
It's okay.
Do you feel the same way for any given planet? Or is there something about Mars? Because in Red Mars, he talks a lot about how Mars has captivated humans since, time immemorial. Would you care as much about Mercury or Venus or anything like that? Or the moon?
Logically, yes. I mean, I do just kind of dig Mars. I think Mars is cool. Largely from reading this, to be honest, from reading this when I was a teenager. But like I used to be able to like name all of the features of Mars on a map.
No way.
Yeah. So like I've kind of forgotten it now, but I've a pretty good idea. Like I know where Olympus Mons is if I'm looking at a map, and I know that's on Elysium, and I know like where the Valles Marineris is in relation to that, and I know where the Hellas is.
But do you know where Underhill is?
Underhill it's on Elysium, isn't it?
I have no idea. There was no map in the
sure
audiobook, so I've no idea. I found the names.
Let me check.
I found the names on the map to be kind of, I don't know, like quirky. Like there was a place called Nicosia, and I was kind of like, Nicosia? That's a bit mad.
Why?
Well, just because, I don't know, because again, okay, logically, I think what would actually happen is that we would get an awful lot of corporations in the naming conventions of these places. Like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this were to occur IRL, that we'd get like new McDonald's. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I guarantee you some corporation's going to sponsor a town to spring up on Mars, and they will be adamant that their name be incorporated into that for advertising. I guarantee that's what happens. But also Nicosia, like I don't see Cyprus as being, unless there's a different Nicosia I'm unaware of, but I don't see Cyprus as being kind of a powerhouse on the world stage such that it would get its own kind of place on Mars.
I think it was just that that was largely built by
Cypriots.
Well, I don't think it said Cypriots, but it was largely built by Muslims. And that's like a, kind of in the Muslim part of the world.
Is it Nicosia?
It's Nicosia is divided between Cyprus and Turkish Cyprus, yes, which is like the kind of unrecognized northern half of the island.
Yeah, I suppose, but God, that seems like a. It seems like a stretch. Like I would have expected. I don't know. I would have expected New Riyadh or. They did have Cairo. Cairo, I think, would be more kind of...
Nicosia, but there is one. There is a Cairo.
But that's what I'm saying. I think that's more kind of like, I don't know, a name that I would be more inclined to choose. But like Nicosia, it'd be the equivalent of, like, if I were given the choice to, you must name a place on Mars after somewhere in Ireland. Like, I'd probably name it New Dublin, just because most Irish people do live in that city. It'd be a bit weird if I was just like, I don't know, I picked some random place on the outside and just was like Kilty Clogher, and everyone's like, what the hell is Kilty Clogher, It's just, I don't know.
New Clare Galway.
Exactly. It's kind of like that. Like that. I'm not saying that Nicosia is
New Listun Varna. I'd go for that, actually. I'd go for New Listun Varna. That'd be fun.
I'm not saying that Nicosia is a place of little consequence, but given the current geopolitical situation of the world, there are more. I would argue there are more prominent places in the Muslim world that might have gotten a shout out before Nicosia. I love you, Cyprus. We actually we bought a small house in Cyprus. Our family did.
Oh, did you?
So we've connections to Cyprus a little bit. So I love you, Cyprus, and I've been there as a child, and it's a great place.
I want to point out I actually misspoke there. I think I said Underhill was on Elysium. It's on Tharsis. I flipped the two around in my head.
Shame.
Yeah, I know. As I said, I had forgotten most of this stuff, but I used to be able to do it really reliably.
So your feelings hold for all the planets, even though there's a special place in your heart for Mars.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we terraform the moon, that is the same calculus for you. You're like, I'm paralyzed as to this decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the moon it's kind of ours already, but maybe for Venus it would be different. I don't know.
How would you feel? Okay, more hypotheticals here. How would you feel if we found that there was life? I don't know if we found that there's life on Mars. We probably haven't, have we?
No, we have not.
We have not, okay. If we found that there was some sort of bacterial life on Mars, does that change your calculus?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So even though that life is like a bajillion years away from perhaps even remotely becoming some way sentient, or becoming like megaflora, megafauna, you're still like, nope, this is the starting point of life. We are not allowed here. Done.
I wouldn't consider that it was the starting point of life. I mean, I wouldn't put a Lamarckian ranking on it, but no, that has right to existence.
And so it's any life has right to existence there.
Yeah.
Be it the smallest microbe, or if we found a small deer with antlers prancing around Venus. It all has right to... Okay, yeah,
absolutely.
That makes sense. I would imagine... I'm with you on that, but I'd imagine a lot of people, particularly if you were to say like, well, hang on, the Earth's dying here before us. We're all, baking in climate change, and you're telling us that we can't move to Mars because of some microbes. I think that would be a very hard sell for people, but I'm with you. I think in practicality that we probably wouldn't uphold that, but in spirit, I'm fully with you on that. Like that, any life at all should be maintained.
Like again, if it's a choice between total human extinction, it will be a harder choice for me to make. But like, I don't know.
But those bacteria, they may one day become Martians.
Well, they already are.
Well, I mean, but like thinking Martians.
I don't think that matters.
I know, that's right. That's mad. I don't think many people would have that opinion. I think a lot of people would make a cutoff there, like the difference between a single-celled organism and a sentient being. They'd be like, these are two very different things. Like, I get they're alive, but they're two very different things. We treat them very differently.
I mean, I think we would treat them very differently. But still, like it still has a fundamental. The fact of its existence is fundamental.
Would you rather? Sorry, again, this is literally my last question. Would you rather we didn't touch any natural body in the solar system and just constructed artificial structures in space? So we solve our Earth is dying problem by building a giant ass. What's that movie? Elysium?
Mm-hmm.
Like a giant ring like that somewhere in space we just make a call as as the human race to be like, we do not touch anything natural here. We've screwed up natural objects. We're not doing that again. We're just going to float around in space.
We're only going to be able to do that by mining like asteroids.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I guess maybe we'll just rank the asteroids being lower on the priority list of preservation. Poor old Ceres, just blown to smithereens. But yeah, so those are basically my takes, my thoughts on the book. I found it interesting intellectually, a bit dull, and it's a little bit long. I don't think it needed to be that long, particularly for a first book. The philosophical debate is it's very fun, and he really does do a good job of presenting all sides of these philosophical arguments, and you as a reader find yourself going, I kind of agree with John here, I kind of agree with Frank, I agree with Hiroko, and you're finding yourself torn, which I think is really good. And also his research on Mars is great. Like the way he presents Mars is just, it feels so real, which is amazing. So those are my thoughts. I'd give it a solid 7-8 out of 10.
Okay.
No. What about you? What are your closing remarks, summaries there, or any additional points?
No, I have said everything I wish to say.
Okay. And your thumbs up for the book.
Yes.
Thumbs up for the book. Cool. All right. So you're okay with Obeliskate next, whenever that might happen.
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I think that's the show.
I think it is.
Oh, look at us in under 2 hours. Woo! Whoop, whoop, whoop. All right. So thank you so much for listening, folks. Thanks, chat, for being there. Hello, chat. Thanks a million for supporting us on Patreon, folks, as well. Links are in the show notes for all of these things. We will see you next month.
We certainly will.
Until next time.
Edgar out.